Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV. The Fire TV from Amazon has been on the market for over a decade now, and we looked at their newest device called the Fire TV 4K Select the other day, and this one is running with a different operating system that significantly limits what it can do. It no longer has an Android backend. It is using something called Vega OS, and oddly, when you look at the marketing for this new device, this new operating system is nowhere to be found. So Amazon really wasn't putting a lot of attention on it, but it significantly limited what the device can do, at least for enthusiasts, but also a lot of smaller apps are missing because they have to be ported over to the new stick. That problem is so significant that Amazon is actually streaming them over the internet, the apps, to the new Fire Stick for compatibility. So in this video, we're going to take a look at what's going on with the Fire TV? Why is Amazon suddenly locking this new operating system down onto at least one device so far? And we'll look at what it might mean for the future of the Fire TV line. Let's get to it. Now it's funny, I've been doing this YouTube thing for so long that I forgot that I actually reviewed the original Fire TV way back in 2014. I was going through my old content wondering when I first started doing these things, and it turns out I actually got the first one in a review video, which you'll see at Lon.TV/FireTV2014. And upon its release, this was kind of significant because there really wasn't a mainstream Android TV box at that point in time. There were a number of attempts by some of these generic manufacturers to shoehorn a tablet Android interface onto a TV box, but it lacked that lean-back kind of interface. In fact, Amazon actually beat Google to the market with an Android-based TV box. The Nexus Player, which was the first iteration of Google's Android TV, did not come out until a few months after the Fire TV hit the market, and even then it was kind of in limited supply and not as heavily marketed as Amazon's product was. Now, back in 2014, the streaming market was very different. People were still buying movies on the Amazon or Apple stores and on the Google Play Store. They were still renting movies that way. They weren't subscribing to streaming services as heavily. Netflix, of course, was out there. Amazon was beginning their streaming efforts with Prime Video, but for the most part, people were buying the devices that were attached to the movie store that they were using the most. And of course, Amazon was trying to expand the purchasing opportunities on this box for consumers, so they invested in game development houses. The graphical capabilities and performance of this box were pretty good. It wasn't as good as an Xbox One might be at the time, but it was close enough that for casual gamers, they might see this as something fun to play with. And there were some great games that were developed through Amazon's investments in those game developers. So that was a big draw to the platform. And over time, everything, of course, has evolved to the point where we got to today. And what was funny was that when Amazon was initially marketing this device, if you look back at this TechCrunch article from 2014, they were basically, going after their competition, saying that the Roku has poor search and is kind of limited. The Apple TV is hard to put text entry into, and at the time, the Apple TV didn't support apps. And for the most part, a lot of these streaming players were not very quick to stream up streaming video sources. But as I found in my review of the Fire TV, it would cache things in the background. So when you clicked on something, it came up almost instantaneously. It was very noticeable versus all of the other devices that were out at the time. And of course, they put a lot of emphasis into gaming back then, so much so that when they released their second generation device a year later, they sold a gaming version that didn't come with a remote control, but rather came with a game controller. And because the Fire TV is running Android under the hood, you could sideload Android apps onto your Fire TV to extend its functionality. And of course, this is something that works on all of the other Fire TVs out there, except for the new one running with the new Vega OS. And as my friend Elias Saba from AFTV News points out, the original Fire TV ran way more apps upon its release than the current device does 11 years later. So what is going on with Fire TV here? Well, the first thing is that it looks like this Vega OS might be only for entry-level devices. At least that's the plan for now. So Elias reports on his site that Amazon is working on a new Android 14-based operating system, likely for their higher-end devices and smart televisions. So apparently, at the moment, the sticks are the target for Vega OS, and that is confirmed a little bit here on the Amazon developer pages, where they talk about Vega OS is the future of Fire TV sticks, and it's likely because this operating system has a lower overhead. Amazon can build cheaper hardware and get similar results to something that they might have had to pay more for with the Android operating system. We found with that Fire TV Select that it felt like old hardware. Even the USB connector is a micro USB on it and not a USB Type-C port, and it only had 1 GB of RAM on board. And Amazon chose React Native as the development environment for this new Vega OS. And they likely chose this because many of the streaming app makers are developing their apps in React because it lets them make the app feel consistent across all these different platforms. But it still needs to be ported, and I'm not sure all of these app makers are going to be so excited about having to maintain yet another version of their app and have to deal with 2 different operating systems for Amazon. And this really is kind of a chicken and the egg kind of problem, which is likely why Amazon is focusing on their higher volume, low-end devices first to get enough of these out there to put some pressure on app makers to develop apps for both OSs. So we'll have to see how this will play out over time. And when we're looking at this, it's important to also look at the market share for streaming devices. So right now, here in the US, according to Pixelate, which has a really good methodology for this, 36% of the streaming devices in use in the United States are powered by Roku. That, of course, includes Roku sticks and boxes, but also Roku smart televisions. And as you can see here, Fire TV is way behind with only 14% market share. And what this data tells us is that consumers don't want anything robust when it comes to their streaming television platform. They just want the app that they're looking for to load up and play the content that they want. They don't want games. They clearly don't care about performance because the Rokus are not the fastest devices out there. It's just good enough and cheap enough to capture this much market share. And of course, Roku as a company is focused almost entirely on the streaming experience. But this is just a huge delta here between Roku and the next platforms down, as you can see on the chart. Even Apple and Amazon combined aren't meeting what Roku is achieving here. One note with this methodology that I mentioned is that this market share study is based on the placement of advertising for free over-the-top services like Pluto and Plex, along with the ads that appear on subscription services. So ads are popping up on Roku devices far more than all the other ones. And you could argue that perhaps Fire TV's market share is bigger because people hack them to get ad blockers built in and stuff. But by and large, I think the market share here speaks for itself. And at the end of the day, Amazon wants to make money with their Fire TV devices, and they're selling something that people don't prefer versus a Roku. And if we look at Roku's latest financial results here, this is pretty crazy in the fact that they make pretty much nothing on their TV boxes. In fact, they were selling them at a loss for a number of quarters now. This quarter, it looks like they broke even, but they made almost $1 billion in gross profit from platform revenue, which includes all of the advertising that they sell on their interfaces and also the ads that appear on their streaming platforms that they're running through their boxes. So these are more gateways than they are necessarily a product anymore. So what's next here? Well, it looks like Google is not happy with their current standing in this place either. And there were some rumors back in August that Google is thinking about maybe canning Google TV completely or rethinking it, because they are losing money here and they don't have significant market share. So my advice to everybody is that if you really like your nvidia Shield TV, I would hoard them right now, because this is like the last of the TV boxes that we came to love back in 2015 when they came out. Things that would allow you to run your retro games and get some great home theater experiences. This is not the product that mainstream manufacturers are going to make any longer. I hope there's a new nvidia Shield at some point, but I can't see this being a profit driver for NVIDIA. I'm surprised they've kept it around this long, given where consumer preferences are. So either we have to just bulk up on these things or maybe rely on the community to come up with something that will meet our needs into the future, because I don't think this is where this market is going, and clearly Amazon doesn't either, who was in this space with an Android-based device that you could sideload things on, and clearly they're starting to step out of that space because they're losing market share to simpler devices. Maybe we'll see some developments on the home theater PC side. I would love for these mini PCs to support Dolby Vision and maybe give us an opportunity to have them work as our streaming boxes, given how cheap these Intel mini PCs are right now. But at the moment, the little PCs just can't do what an nvidia Shield does insofar as supporting Dolby Atmos audio in lossless formats, and also, of course, Dolby Vision and some of the HDR modes. It just doesn't work as well as an nvidia Shield does running Android or Google TV. So that's where things are at right now. It seems to me that the robust TV box concept is no longer something these companies wish to pursue. Apple is one of the holdouts here with something that's doing okay, all things considered, but still they're way behind where Roku is at. But for Apple, it's not a heavy lift. They take their iPhone technology, they put it into a TV box, and they've got a lot of customer loyalty from people who have the iPads, the phones, the watches, and the computers like me, who then just get the Apple TV so their iCloud photo library can appear on their TV sets. And I would imagine that's probably why the Apple TV has the market share that it does. It's latched onto the iPhone and the Apple ecosystem. So moving forward, I think this Vega OS and all of these simplified streaming-only devices are where things are going to be. So just prepare yourselves for that, and hopefully we can start looking as a community at ways that we can continue the robustness that us self-hosting media folks want in their homes. I still want to play my retro games, and I still want to stream my media from my Plex server. So that is what the focus has to be here moving forward. We still have some time. The nvidia Shield is still available at retail. But again, I am not optimistic for the future of the TV box concept that we saw with the original Fire TV back in 2014. That will do it for this one. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.